Time now for Focus, and today we head to Moscow, where one of the key issues in this month's election of local councillors is waste management. Greenpeace has ranked the Russian capital 40th out of 160 cities for its efficiency in handling rubbish. Our team in Moscow has been to find out how officials are planning to clean up their act and, more importantly, the area.
In the Moscow region, massive rubbish dumps the size of 30-storey buildings. 11,700,000 tonnes of waste are tipped out here each year. A little over 2 months ago, during his annual televised question and answer show with the Russian people, Vladimir Putin listens to the complaints of those living nearby.
There are constant gas emissions, methane ethyl, sulfur dioxide. All these transform into hydrogen sulfide. We frequently feel nauseous and throw up. It's unbearable. We've complained to a number of institutions at different levels, but nobody takes responsibility. We don't know what else we can do. You're our last hope.
I truly understand this issue, and I can see now, live, how serious the problem is. This has been going on for decades. We'll try to solve it as soon as possible.
A week later, the magic happens. The Balashiha dump, founded in 1964, is closed. We got access to it. For 20 years, Boris Trushin's company drew up the obligatory sanitary standards to run rubbish dumps. Standards that are almost never met.
None of the points included in our guidelines have been put in place, except for one, to bury 6 million tons of waste here. And they've gone above and beyond that. They've brought in much more. The growth of this dump was out of control. The result is that it emits 5,000 cubic meters of biogas per hour into the atmosphere. 500 cubic meters of residual liquids flow into the river here and that one over there.
Despite the environmental disaster, the dump was initially expected to function until 2021. In Russia, 95% of waste ends up like this, in nature. Some 20 kilometres from Balashiha, another dump sprawls over more than 100 hectares. Liquids from the waste leach into the neighbouring village, where there's no running water.
That's our well. We don't use it anymore because the water's unusable, even for cleaning. We go and get the water from its source, 15 kilometres away, and bring it back in 25-litre barrels. I haven't used this water for a year and a half, and I don't have boils on my hands anymore. I still have a few on my elbows, but that's nothing compared to what it was like before.
In Timokhova, the locals have also fought for years to close the rubbish dump, but with no success.
We're very happy for those living in Balashiha that they've got what they wanted. But now all that rubbish comes here. And what about us? Who's going to help us? I think only Vladimir Putin can help. But is it up to him to solve this kind of problem? What good are ministers if they can't solve this without him?
Since 2013, the authorities have closed 22 out of 39 dumps in the Moscow region. But the problem remains: what to do with the waste? The regional minister for the environment is crisscrossing the region, meeting with exasperated residents.
I repeat that Saryovo dump will be closed on the 1st of October of this year.
Concerned about his image, the minister constantly tries to prevent us from filming.
Put down the camera.
Once the meeting's over, we ask him why the Balashiha tip hadn't been closed before Vladimir Putin took the stage live on air.
We feared that the waste would be dumped into the closest pit. That's what we were worried about, and that's why we didn't take the decision that was required. The necessary infrastructure isn't available. The companies collecting the rubbish see their costs increase because the dumps are being closed. But we have to close them because they've become intolerable.
One of the solutions, slow to be put in place, is waste sorting. It exists, on paper at least, in 9 of Moscow's 12 districts.
The waste sorting bins closest to my house are several kilometres away. I can't go there by foot. I have to take the car.
Natalia Rozina published a study on the work of waste collection companies that signed contracts worth €3.5 billion with Moscow City Council to recycle rubbish.
This waste sorting point is here thanks to a local resident. She even came up with the design. The waste collection companies are obliged to set up points like this one, but in a number of areas the locals take care of it themselves by hassling the companies with phone calls and letters, so they install them.
But these bins are no guarantee recycling will take place. We had swift proof of this from the dustbin men who came to collect.
Whenever there's food scraps, we throw out everything. Nobody can be bothered sorting out the scraps, and if there are tea towels or anything else that shouldn't be there, we just chuck the whole lot out.
Why can't they sort through it again?
And where do you want them to sort it? That would mean they'd have to take all that, bring it somewhere, employ more people to do it. In Russia, I think all the sorting is done at the dump. There's a whole load of homeless people to sort through it all.
A law brought in on the 1st of January this year, however, made it illegal to throw out recyclable and dangerous materials. The Moscow authorities have promised to build 13 recycling centres and 4 waste incinerators by 2023.
For more on this, I'm now joined in the studio by Michael Brett, who's an economist specialising in sustainable growth and energy issues, and he's the CEO of Partitus. Hello, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Now, we just saw there the situation in the Moscow region, but is waste management a countrywide problem in Russia?
Definitely. It's primarily a problem of policy making, so it's not only regional, but it's national. Russian authorities come to consider environmental issues when it makes a problem for public health or for really devastating consequences on the environment. And we know that that is precisely when it's too late to act. So we are left with measures of emergency measures that compound the cost. And as we have seen since decades now, the cost of inaction is huge in these issues, in environment in general, waste in particular. And now Russia faces a problem which is much costlier than it used to be.
Tell us more about the impact. How exactly is the waste management affecting the environment?
So the waste, even traditional waste, when they are not contained, go through underground water systems, and affect really large areas, really outside of where they were put. So the consequences goes directly to surrounding populations, and then through the whole ecosystem to the food chain and the environment, and even Vladimir Putin, who likes to hunt and go in wild areas, beautiful wild areas of Russia. The traces are not visible, but they are definitely there.
So there's a lack of political will, and this despite, you were saying, the cost of the effects. So it's not an important issue politically in Russia, then, the environment?
It's not. It is only when it directly impacts business. And if you look at the track record of environmental regulations that have been successfully implemented in Russia, basically there is one, which is certification of forestry, because Russia exports a lot of wood, softwood, etc., to China, India, neighbor countries. So it's a direct economic stake, hence policy making moves on this issue. When it impacts populations, it's really considered as secondary. And the only channel through which policy making could be affected is by civil society. And that's exactly the story that has been told in Russia about environment. It follows the way that civil society is treated. Back in the Gorbachev area, the first green movements appeared and were a little bit listened to. But then during the Eltsine era, the country was too poor to consider these things. And now with Putin, if NGOs talk about these issues, they become enemies of the nation.
All right, I'm afraid we've run out of time. Thank you very much indeed, Michael Brett, for coming in for today's Focus. Thank you for